Good morning. So, after coaching and bringing therapists into this work for some time now, I've realized you can have all the tools, all the information, everything you need to get going. But what no one can supply you with is the internal feeling that you're capable of doing this, that you can overcome and work through your fears around doing this, work through obstacles. So, I've decided to interview some guests regarding the feeling element of doing this work. And with that said, I would like to introduce Sheila Mabry. She's a licensed clinical social worker, a professional certified coach, and owner of She Helps Consulting. Sheila has been in business since 2006 and is a psychotherapist, life and leadership coach, consultant, and a trainer. So, Sheila, terrific having you, and thank you so much for agreeing to this interview today. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and also a little bit about your business?
Okay, so I am Black
Mm-hmm.
American. I grew up in New York City, and I am I'm queer, and what's really important to me are those all those aspects of my identity, what they mean. That I'm cisgendered, and I am partnered with a woman,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Terrific.
um, now what else can I tell you about myself? Well, I grew up economically poor, and that experience also informs like how I do my work, like who I take into my practice, what I consider when helping people grow, uh, and my role as a therapist or my role as a coach, even how I train, all of that, like what it meant to be disadvantaged at points. And
Yeah.
I also got to also figure out like what it meant to be advantaged, like to
Mhm.
see what other people don't see from a particular vantage point, and I see that as a strength. So yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like that's such a unique experience that you've had in so many different ways. And it also offers you so much, right, in terms of your lens. Like you talk like talking about the disadvantaged portion, the advantage portion, and how you've moved between and some of those differences, you know. I think that's terrific that you put voice to that.
Mhm.
Um, so let me ask you this. So when you think about how it informs your work, having grown up, you know, in your identity and also dealing with the economic situation that you were dealing with, can you tell me a little bit more about how it informs your work?
Mhm. Well, I knew young what it was not to have, and then I also knew what it was to sort of hustle. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and and I don't see hustle as a negative term. Like it is
Right.
something that is built in, that no matter where you work, no matter what you do, you don't just do what's your job. You grow and you learn as much as possible. You take advantage of as many opportunities as possible, because those are things, as old folks would tell us, that they can't take away from you. It's like education.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we focus on formal education, which of course I have, but um, so many people, when I didn't have formal education, at least, past
Mhm.
like college and that kind of thing, there were so many people with degrees that didn't have common sense. Old folks would say like educated fools, right? And so I vowed to not
Yeah.
be that kind of person, and that a lot of my education was also around unlearning things that
Mhm.
weren't helpful to my survival and weren't helpful to the survival of my people. Like I had to unlearn things, and that's around like how I need to look, how I have to sound, uh, what kind of body I should have, who is okay for me to love, that those
Mhm.
kinds of things, and who who am I supposed to impress? Like who are my people? And a lot of what I tell a lot of folks that I am working with as a therapist, uh, as a coach, or even any work in my life period, is who who always know who you are, whose you are, and who your people are. And that means so many things, like who your people are, like who your tribe is. And it's larger than race, though race is a part of it, larger than gender, though gender is a part of it, gender identity is a part of it, your class background you come from that you should never forget, your people who you should never forget, right? And what does it take to um like I say, unlearn these things and learn what you need to, and also offer up what you know, so that it reverberates out into the universe, out into the world, and that a difference is made, you know, because I want to be um, someone who makes a change in the world. Like, and I want to be someone who I consider myself to be that. And I want to say
Mhm.
humbly and not so humbly that wherever I can make a difference, I make a difference. And so even my practice is not about making money. I make money, but it's not about making money. It's like, how many people can I reach that can reach other people? Uh,
Amazing.
right. You
Yeah.
know, so yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always wonderful to speak with you, Sheila, just like your authenticity and your story and like the way that you understand yourself and others is just amazing. And it's always inspirational. So thank you. Okay. So the next
This
question I have
haven't
for
inspired me, Amira. Go ahead.
you. Thank you, Sheila. The next question I have for you, can you talk to me a little bit about the emotional component of starting your business?
Ah, okay. Well, let me just say that um, one of my dearest friends um, and my mentor, who has have had a big part in how I started my practice, and also a training institute I was in. One of the teachers in that. So um, to start my practice, well, first early on, I was told when I went to Hunter School of Social Work, um, it just so happens that the one of my professors was the director of the Y I went to when I was 11 years old. So when I
Amazing.
finally went to Hunter and I was just trying to decide, should I stay there? Because
Mhm.
I had a job, full-time job, you know, making like 30 something thousand a year, which was a lot for
Mhm.
me.
Right.
Coming from
Mhm.
where I came from, I had benefits and all of that. I was going to leave school. I was going to leave work to go to school full time, which meant that I was going to take out loans.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when I went to the first week of classes, they asked us these questions like, um, why social work? Why now? Kind of
Mhm.
thing. I would tell everybody my work, which I had worked at a public defender, really informed my decision to become a social worker. And but in that last class I went to help me decide if I was going to stay, was Pat Dempsey, who had been the director of the Y. And I looked at her. By the time they came to me, I was probably the 15th person to talk about Y. I said, in all the other classes, I talked about work. But actually, I always thought that I would put an ad in the paper to reach out to the people who made a difference in my life. And, you know, and I said, and you were one of those people. You're Pat Dempsey. You were the director of the
Wow.
Clinton Y.
Powerful.
Crying, like it was like, you know, and as a kid I was troubled from some of the stuff that I had experienced in my life, and but at the Y they taught us so much, and it was like a Y that had like Black and brown folks in it. It was like really beautiful, and actually there were social workers there. I didn't know that, but like they ran groups and we talked about you know, growing up and all these different things, which was kind of like being in a therapy group without being in one, but also
Yeah.
developing you as a young person. And there they did Snow Black and the Seven
Ooh.
Dude instead of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Wow.
And I didn't understand. I always tell people this. I didn't understand the significance of that until years later, like what that meant.
Mhm.
So that's that. But I still have to say, we were told early on, don't start a private practice for at least 5 years, at least after you graduate. Of course, listening like I do, I took 10 years because
Mhm.
I really felt that I was not equipped to be a therapist unless I had more training and more time. But
Mhm.
once I started, I actually realized I could have started way sooner, right? But
Mhm.
it worked out that I was in a training program, Women's Therapy Center Institute, and this woman, Linda Arbus, a social worker, who does a lot of great work around eating disorders from a feminist
Mhm.
perspective, and
Mhm.
also large bodies, like what it is to be fat,
Mhm.
like and not to be ashamed of, like fat is fat and that's what it is. And we deal with what is internalized from the society, right? So she offered to allow me to use her space, to rent her space on Mondays, as I grew my practice, which was really a sweet thing to do. The other thing is the person I was partnered with at the time, a psychologist, She gave me all the forms I needed to start my practice. And
I
what
love.
was really cute is the first client that I had, um, I only was going to charge $1
Mm-hmm.
because I had to make sure that they knew they had to pay, but I understood what their limitation was around that. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was that. And the first day of my session, I had prepared for, I sat in that room and she didn't come. And
Mm-hmm.
then my partner called me at about 3 something, probably like to encourage me, and was shocked that I picked up the phone. And I picked up the phone and she said, "What are you do? What are you doing on the phone? Where's your client?" I said, "She didn't come." She's like,
Mm-hmm.
"You prepared
Wow.
so hard. You prepared so hard
Yeah.
for this." Like, and she didn't come. I said, "Don't be upset with my client. She has anxiety." Right. You know? And
Mhm.
but even starting that emotionally, what it meant. And then when I was starting to ask for money, that was one of the hardest things. And
Mhm.
and back then when I started, I was charging $90 for a session. Is that's what I wanted to get, right?
Mhm.
And my first client I got through Linda Arbus, and it was a young Black woman in school, and she specifically wanted to work with a Black woman. That was it, and we worked.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And the funny thing even about that was that um, the insurance, the school insurance would allow they had to pay a copay and you got $50. So it would have been like $75 I would have gotten for this.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't manage that. So I just let the child pay me $25. Like like that was that, right? And we worked together. It was wonderful. And
Yeah.
even when I started asking for the 90, it was like outside I would say my session is $90 and and you can, and I order sliding scale and like all this other stuff I would add to it because I felt bad saying it, but I did offer sliding scale and I still do
Mhm. Mhm.
because I want to know that somebody wants to work and that I want to create that space. And I charge people who can afford, so I can charge people who can't afford the full fee. No one
Mhm.
is treated any different. And that's what I actually say to all of my clients in both parts of my practice, because they don't get anything different. And anybody who's worked with me would probably say like, "Oh, I know you don't do anything different," because there's all the extra stuff that I think is necessary depending on
Mhm.
who you're working with, and everybody should have that. Everybody should have that. So the money stuff of that was hard. The
Yeah.
the the confidence in knowing what I knew, and also to be confident enough to know what I didn't know, was a really
Mhm.
important thing. Like, we are not all knowing ever.
Mhm. Mhm.
Everybody that comes before us has a story and an experience that we do not know.
Right.
It may ring true to something that we experienced or things that other people experienced or other clients that we worked with, but they are uniquely
Mhm.
who they are, experiencing the world uniquely for who they are, and all of the complications and the wonderfulness, like all of
Mhm.
it. And then you have to be open to learning in the process of helping someone. You're just facilitating, like it's like art, like you're in this thing with
Yeah.
somebody who trusts you. You build a container for the work. You're finding
Mhm.
out what they need. Sometimes they don't know what they think they don't know what they need or want, but you will see as you ask questions that they have a sense of what they want and need, and then you have to
Mhm.
create the environment for them to be able to get that, to reach that. So, but money, asking for it, um, asking for it if someone doesn't give it to you, having
Mhm.
boundaries around it, all of that was hard. But the work was the most important thing to me, though. And then I had to catch up with why these other things were important, and in order to take care of myself as a person in business, though I don't like to think of myself that way, because I feel
Mhm.
like if I think of myself only as a person in business, I cannot serve my community. I really feel that.
Mhm.
It's why, you don't get to ask people why they're spending money on what they're spending money on related to why they're paying you or not. That is not
Right.
healthy.
Right.
I
Mhm.
want my clients to pay me what they can, the ones who will get a sliding scale and still have a life. I don't think people
Absolutely.
should pay for therapy and not travel and not
Right.
take classes and not do whatever else. So
Yeah. Not enjoy
and
life.
Right, right. And the honor system to offering sliding scale to some folks is that it's up to them. I don't even ask them about this. I don't want to know about your money. I don't want to know. Just go away, come back, give me something that
Yeah.
you feel you can afford, and I'll tell you whether I can do it or not. But then I expect you, as things get better for you, when they do, not if, when they do, that you will know that if you can go up, then I can offer something to someone else. But if you don't ask me at a certain point, it usually takes a long time. I'm going to bring it up, but it's not because you did anything wrong. I'm just going to bring it up that this is a
Mhm.
time that I think, can that work for you and how will it work? Yeah.
Absolutely. I love the way you approach money. I think that that's so healthy and so useful. And there's also like, there's the emotional and I want to say the spiritual component, right? There's a spiritual component to like offering healing and being connected to others and around their healing. I think it's just beautiful. So
And
thank you.
what I can also tell you around the money is, whenever I have offered a sliding scale to someone, I have gotten sometimes 2, 3 full fee clients. And they're full
Mm,
fee clients, but they're no more important to me than the clients who have a sliding scale. But
mhm.
it's what happens. It's like what the universe does for me. And I'm not about the money at all. I'm not about the money, you know.
Right.
So and I could tell you even around the coaching. So I was a therapist for many years. Like I was a therapist, not in private practice. I started training in like 94 to 96. Uh,
Hmm.
and, but, we train to work with people therapeutically in all kinds of environments in organizations, right? And then
Hmm.
I still was getting postgraduate training and stuff. And then, and I was supervising people. And then I decided to do the practice after I went into an additional advanced training program.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and uh, but after a lot of years, I decided to be a coach, and and I took the route of being trained and being a certified coach, because I know a lot of folks coach this, and they're great coaches. But I went through a training program, like
Mhm.
about 10 months, and then after that, um, I coached folks, and then I worked towards my certification through the International Coach Federation. But one of the groups of folks that I got to coach was CUNY has a program called Youth Matter.
Mhm.
It's a program that works with um, youth who were in the foster care system or who were orphaned as children, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's a wonderful program, and they offer coaches.
Mhm.
And what was really sweet about that is they did like a date bait situation where you like went in, and each of the participants got to interview you, and then they told who they wanted. You
I
know,
love it. Mhm.
it was beautiful. And my my decision around that was, how do I go into this process coaching folks who have experienced, which I have in my life, abandonment folks for like whatever that was, right? In these systems and stuff, as a child of color, a young person of color, maneuvering college and all of that stuff. Like what would I want to give these folks? And I had decided before I started working with them that they are in my life for life, whether CUNY paid me or not. And when the program
Mhm.
closed, I'm still connected to people, because
Right.
that's a different situation. Like I'm into boundaries and everything, but for me, that was a different situation. So if they don't want to work with me, or they don't want to check in with me or whatever, that's fine. That's their decision. But if they ever call me back, I don't care how
Mhm.
old I am, you know,
Yeah.
help them in whatever way I can, because that's a different relationship, and
Absolutely.
so
Mhm.
the gift of being like a therapist and a coach is that the skills I developed as a therapist helped me be a better coach, and the
Mhm.
skills I developed as a coach helped me be a better therapist. But I
Mhm.
have to be really clear what I'm doing at any given time. And
Mhm.
any of the work as a therapist or a coach is asking permission. It's never like imposing what you think on people.
Mhm.
And I have a really good sense of humor, but like if I say something that doesn't land as funny to somebody, I have to check that, right? Or you
Yeah.
know
Mhm.
there's just and I ask in designing the relationship to tell me, please, you may not tell me right away, but know that when you tell me I did something that didn't work for you, please know I'm not going to turn that back on what was wrong with you as to why that didn't work. I'm not going to do that. This is a very
Absolutely.
uh sacred, powerful relationship,
Mhm.
the collaboration, and we're human. Like, how can we not be? So I want to go to, I know you're going to ask me, well, go ahead. You can ask what you're going to,
Okay.
let me say, I was thinking about, because we talked a little bit before about this, is what it meant to be a therapist and a coach during COVID.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
so I could talk about that and say that, first of all, I was in a lot of environments as a professional,
Mhm.
and I am still, but I was in a lot of environments as a professional where sometimes I was one of few people of color.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's even in some learning environments that I'm in.
Yeah.
And and those learning environments that I'm in are environments that, people learn from me too. Like it's supposed to be like a give and
Mhm.
take in the learning. And also, like, I work with all kinds of people. I work with people of color and white folks, right?
Mhm.
And in the midst of being a therapist and a coach, you know, we had people die in our family. Just
Mhm.
die.
Right.
And self-disclosure you're supposed to do when it's to the benefit of the client. But my work has always been, clients know things about me, but
Mhm.
the sessions are theirs, you know.
Right.
And I shared in some environments,
Mhm.
I had people sick, and I shared that we had people die.
Yeah.
I felt it was important because I felt that that was a collective experience, but I didn't
Absolutely.
make the session mine.
Mhm.
Did To help folks understand that they were not alone and that many people were struggling and that their experience of what they were going through is uniquely theirs, but that there is a collective thing that's happening outside, and especially what was happening for us as people of color, Black
Absolutely.
people specifically, right? So
Yeah.
um, it was a time and has been since where I really have to model what I ask people to do.
Mhm.
It meant that sometimes I would take clients on walks because I wanted them to see outside, because I wanted to be outside because I needed to be outside. But it wasn't, I need to
Mhm.
be outside, so I'm dragging you outside. It was, could I consider, and ask permission for, you know, them to come outside with me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then some clients I work with for years. So some of them are on business trips and whatever else, and sitting in pools in another country and talking to me and
Right.
stuff. Like it's hilarious. It's like wonderful, but it's also
Yeah.
see people who have come from struggle as well,
Mhm.
having
Mhm.
um, things good in their life and still helping them to manage the ranges of things that come up, being people of color or even white folks who want to do good in
Mhm.
this culture of white supremacy. Like it is there.
Mhm.
So it's a therapist or a coach, even as a coach during COVID, is still to offer to someone to make the space for possibilities, for expansiveness and for dreaming, even in the midst of difficulty. But it's not to deny difficulty ever. It's not to like, hey, if you just pull yourself up, hey, if you're positive, you can attract positivity. Like, I do not
Right.
use that stuff because I find it unhelpful. I find it blaming people when they are struggling, when there are real
Mhm.
symptoms that impact them. I'm not saying that shifting your thinking doesn't help. It helps.
Right.
But
Right.
denying what is going on is not helpful to the work. And that is why
Absolutely.
people come to me, people of color and even white folks who want to do anti-racist work. Everyone that comes to me is not like, I want to do anti-racist work, right? But that's the foundation, or anti-oppression work is the foundation of my work as a therapist and a coach, because I am going to validate for you, or like poof, make you aware of what you may have internalized, which is why you are struggling, right? Like that's,
Mm,
that's an important thing. And what are the systems that you are in? And, why you may do the things you do, and some for survival and otherwise, right? Without being
mm,
like, you see, that's because you're a fake, or you're nah, that's not that. It's complicated.
mm,
And I don't
right.
encourage people to tell the truth all the time either.
Right.
Truth does not set you free in certain circumstances. So the goal is to help people know their truth, also
Hmm.
know where they can bring it. Like,
Right. When to tell it and when not to.
right,
Right.
right. And the truth of who they are is the truth of who they are. I'm not saying deny that, but there are certain other truths, like somebody's oppressing you, that there's a time sometimes where you have to know it and then be strategic around how to deal with it. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah. So anyway,
Absolutely. Yes. This has been terrific, Sheila. Thank you so much for all of this. I am so excited. I'm so happy that you were the first person I have interviewed, and you just blow me away every time I have a conversation with you. So thank you.
let
Uh,
me just say this to you, like I am so appreciative and warmed to my heart from all that you are doing. That is wonderful. And
Thank you.
and all that you've gone through to build what you are building and continue to build, and just all the really wonderful people that are being touched by your work and the work of those folks that you touch and who are working with you. You know what I mean? Like it's a beautiful thing to watch, and it's inspiring, because also as a therapist and a coach and a practice, you can be isolated. You really can be.
Absolutely.
But when you have community and you are part of that
Mhm.
community, when you have community, even if you don't talk to people every day, but you have a sense of what they are doing in their lives and what it is, it
Mhm.
expands for you, like what you feel you can do and what you can help others understand that they can do. So thank you, Amira, for being you and working you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
yeah.
you. My pleasure. Terrific, Sheila. So, if people would like to find you, if they want to work with you in any capacity, how can they find you?
Well, one of the ways they can find me is to go on the National Queer and Trans Therapists of Color Network. That's
Hmm.
the network that I'm listed under. That's very near and dear to my heart. That a lot of times people want to see who they're going to work with. It doesn't
Yeah,
mean you see somebody and that means that's the person you work with, but for some people, to just seeing or understanding what somebody is, who they are, what they represent, lessens their ability, their fear of like access to
absolutely.
services, right?
Yeah,
So that's a place where people will see like who I am, as that I'm a therapist, how I identify and all of that, because to be on that, I had to do all of that. Not just what I look like, but who I am that you can't see. So there's that.
I love it.
And
Hmm.
and my contact information is on there. So I would just leave it at that. But
Okay.
yeah,
All right. Terrific. Thank you so much, Sheila. I really appreciate you.
I can
Take
take care.
care, and we will talk soon. Bye bye.